Welcome back to Newsday. Now, the ongoing uncertainty over the availability of maize has been quietly driving up the prices of products across the agric value chain, especially poultry products. For the problems and prospects of resolving this matter, we're now being joined by Akpa Onalos, Director General, Poultry Association of Nigeria. Good to have you, Akpa. Okay.
It's a pleasure. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Now, could you give us a brief background to how this crisis emerged, this crisis, maize crisis?
Yeah, thank you so much, Mekene. The maize crisis, the crisis came up not a sudden issue. It came up as a result of possibly 3-4 main factors. One was the lockdown that started in the first quarter of 2020. The second had been the insecurity that has tried to ravage the northern parts of the country, especially in the northeast and the northwest, where basically crops like maize and soya are being produced on a large portion. The third has been the flood that ravaged some of the states, the crop production states of the north, especially the northwest and some part of the northeast. And there was also a drought in the middle part of, not in the middle part, in the substantial part of July to August last year, especially in the southwest and some parts of the north central states. So this gave reasons to the inability of people to go to the farm to produce abundantly because of the security of their life. And then for those who were able to go to the farm to produce, because of the flood and the near drought in the middle part of the country and in the south, occasioned also by the flood, heavy flood in the northwest and in some parts of the northeast, contributed to the abyssal drop in the expected maize output for the year 2020, and that has rolled over to 2023. Since we are in a dry season right away, there is no cropping, there is nothing. So that's the summary of what actually led to the shortage and near absence of maize and soya in the industry responsible for the current crisis we're having.
All right, Akpa. How much of a problem, now I'm talking about the magnitude of the problem that this is, and let's also talk about the prospect of a resolution or a quick fix. What is it? How is it going to affect the poultry industry value chain, both in the medium and then, of course, in the long term?
Yeah, thank you so much. It's already affecting the industry, and other than the poultry industry, to me, it's also affecting the food security situation of the country, because this is January. Traditionally, we should be harvesting the other crops, if not maize and soya, by January. Traditional harvest of maize and soya ended up in December. And by January already we're having these shortages. So it is already negatively affecting the poultry industry. And it is also affecting the family nutrition. The cost of maize, not only maize, other cereals are up on the ceiling. And in the interim, in order for us not to suffer devastating losses and then eroding the gains so far recorded in the poultry sector, where I principally belong, we are going to suffer, if we don't take short-term measures right away, we are going to suffer devastating losses. And then a lot of people might be thrown into the unemployment market as a result of the closure of farms, the small and the medium, and some of the large farms that are already closing down. And part of the short-term measures we've adopted, we've recommended to government to adopt, is that we are not going to have maize coming from anywhere as manna until when we substantially go into the wet season farming this year, and then the crops will not come out until September, October, November. And for it to dry to a moisture level to be used in the poultry industry, to be around November. So we've suggested to government, we've recommended to government rather, that look, for us not to shoot ourselves on the leg and eroding the gains so far recorded, throwing so many people into the unemployment market, they should, on the short term, allow for the importation of maize A lot of school of thought says if maize is allowed to be imported into this country, it might invariably or automatically affect the local production. But the argument is this. This is February, the first week of February. The rain may not come until May, June. Now, before you plant, before you harvest, it will take up to October. So what we are appealing to government to allow us to be brought in is just 1.5 million metric tons of maize out of the 4.5 million metric tons needed for the poultry industry. And I will tell you that we'll be able to manage that until the new harvest comes in September, October, November. The same thing for soya. Of the 1.2 million metric tons of soya required for the poultry industry, we've requested government to allow us for the importation of 750,000 metric tons. And I will assure you, and all of us can do the arithmetics, it will not, by August, all this that we are requested, if granted, will disappear because the crushing capacity of most of our members, some people even crushes soya up to 1,000 metric tons, in a day. Some 500 metric tons in a day. So the same thing for maize. So it will not affect the local production, I assure you. But because even the hurdle of importation is a lot of trouble. Right, so nobody wants to be involved in it. But what we're trying to say is that so that we don't get all our gains eroded and then a lot of people thrown back into the unemployment market.
Okay, Thank you. What, Mr. Nalos, what you seem to be saying, if adopted, would bring about almost like an instant resolution. How likely is it that government will adopt this? You sound very persuasive now, but what would be the hurdles they would be considering? Apart from the fact that they feel it will affect the local market or the national market?
Yeah, I think that is an argument. I'm trying to separate assumptions from reality. People assumed by the time you allow for the importation of 1.5 million metric tons of maize, it will affect local production. And I'm telling you that when you look at production patterns, people say dry season farming. If you want to do dry season farming, and by February you have never planted, when is the maize going to be done? And then by the time the maize is going to be done, and what quantum of dry season farming are you going to do? So if we wait for that, it will just like pricing an animal that is still in the bush. So what we're saying, give us the ample opportunity to bring in 1.5 million metric tons of maize, and then it will not affect because invariably there is no maize, there is no soya. So there is nothing that it is going to affect. And by the time we exhaust this, maybe by June, July, August, then the new maize will come in. And then some people might even decide to buy them wet and then use an industrial system to dry them and use until it is naturally dry to a moisture content that people could just go into the open market and buy and use.
Okay.
All right, well...
that is a common argument, and it's empirical. Anybody can just do 1 plus 2 and then get the reality that I'm saying. So we should not assume. And then because there is problem in our hand, the problem in our hand is how do we solve it?
Yeah, that's what everybody should be thinking about. How do we get out of it? All right, well, maize is ranked as the third most...
How do you get out of it?
All right, okay. I didn't know you were still speaking. All right, maize is ranked as the third most important cereal. That's after wheat and rice. And this is globally, Aban. How true is this and why so? And how does that affect our food chain here, really?
Yeah, I thank you so much. I continue to tell people, when you look at the importance of maize, especially in the Nigerian climate and the economy, 75% of the families in northern Nigeria, other than industrial use, which poultry belongs, use maize as their staple food. Now, in the south, it is tuber. Now, today, if a mudu, maybe if a kilogram of maize is going as much as 200 naira, then, and you have a family of 5, you have a family of 6, you have a family of 7. And the way we are seeing, I'll tell you, when you look at the prices of poultry feeds, the trend of the movement of prices of poultry feeds in the last 30 days is over 15 to 17 movement. Because every day you go to the market, it's just like a bazaar. You go to the market in the morning, the price of maize, the price of soya shifts. then tomorrow the price of maize and soya shifts. So invariably, the feed millers and the people doing poultry will have to continue to manage their cost of inputs. And then invariably, for those who do commercial feed production, as you manage this, as you buy and the prices continue galloping up on daily basis, you continue to adjust your price to the final consumers. And this is affecting the entire value chain. So other than the poultry, like I have said earlier, the family and the national food security is threatened. We might be saying, no, there is maize, there is this. Do we want until it storms us on the face? And then where do we start running to? Look at it in this country. In West African sub-region, Nigeria has the largest population. The population of the entire countries of West Africa, that 13, when you put it together, it's not up to 50% of the population of Nigeria. Assuming there is a food crisis in our hand today, where do we run to?
Yes.
And I'll tell you this with all facts and available to me, that even the neighboring countries, Niger, Chad, buy our grains through informal businesses. So do they have grains? Is it Chad? Is it Cameroon? Or who do we run to supply us maize? So we have a crisis in our hand. And I want people to look at it holistically, patriotically. It is not, I'm not an importer. I'm not an importer. I'm a poultry business person, and I'm a poultry administrator. So if I come to do an argument, I don't do an argument because I want it to suit me, to suit my purpose or the purpose of my people. We have to look at it, the national interest of this country. Poultry produces the cheapest means of protein supply to an average Nigerians. If not because of high cost of production, you can use 30, 40 naira to go and buy an egg, and you can imagine the vitamins, the varied vitamins and minerals that it provides into your body system. So let's look at the general interest of Nigerians, yes, and not the interest of the poultry farmer again only. And yes, that is why I talk of the food security situation of the country. Yes. Every farmer, even educated or uneducated, every Nigerian can attest to this.
Mr. Onalos, I really do appreciate your passion. But let's look at the practicality of what you're preferring. You speak of maize importation. How easy is it to access credit to import maize?
Well, the good thing is that the private sector is completely private sector driven. All the investment, whatever, how many trillions of naira, is completely private person's investment. Now, there are so many ways. There are a lot of credit facilities in the banks. If, for example, the government says, okay, today, Poultry Association of Nigeria, we have allowed you to import maize, it now behoves on the association to tell its members, look, this is what we've been given or approved to import. Company A, Company B, Company C, Company D, do you have the financial wherewithal to bring in this? Because it is not for an association to import. It is for our members to import and bring so that it will cushion the current challenges. So there are so many credit facilities. Sometimes this time last week, I believe, we were on a round table with the United States Export Council, and they told us, look, there are credit facilities. We call it GSM 102. This credit facility is available. If we decide to import based on price comparison, to import from the US, they could grant us 12 months credit facilities. So, and then using the various commercial banks they want to use or that partners with them. These are options, and there are so many other options that are available. So the issue of credit behoves on individual opportunities that is available to individual companies or to us as an association. Then we tell our members to key on to them.
All right. Let's take this last question before we then let you go about. Very briefly. Well, okay, we're talking about briefly. Let's look at the present level of production and how we can improve on that level when we talk about the problems in the industry, problems of inadequate supply of funds and the other problems, and then the prospects. How can we raise the level? Aside, of course, you've talked about importing. How can we raise the level? Just 20 seconds,
yes,
if you can.
Yeah, 20 seconds, we could raise the level because poultry is the low-hanging fruit in the agribusiness of this country. If there is maize, you can hatch your day-old chicks today in 21 days, and in the next 35 days, the birds will attain 2.5 to 3 kilo live weight, and you slaughter them. Then you go into the market. So it is not it's not a rigid business. Poultry is the long-hanging fruit in the agribusiness sector of this country. And I'll tell you, my fear is this. If we allow this situation to prolong then people smuggling in all kinds of poultry products into this country, including egg.
We're going to have to stop you there. We're out of time. Thank you so much for given us your time. Time for a brief break. We'll be back with more stories. Do stay with us.